There is a hotel in Palm Beach, Florida, that occupies a building constructed in 1901. The building is made of marble. The marble was imported from 7 different countries. The entrance hall is 73 feet long and 30 feet wide. The ceiling is 45 feet above the floor. The building contains 55 rooms and took 18 months to construct. The architect was John Carra, who also designed the New York Public Library. The original owner spent over $2.5 million building it. He gave it to his new wife as a wedding present. He called it Taj Mahal of North America. He was Henry Morrison Flagler. He was 71 years old when he built it. His wife was 34. He had built the railroad that made Florida accessible to the American public. He had built the hotels that made Florida fashionable. He had built the infrastructure that turned a subtropical wilderness into the most desirable winter destination in America. And then he built this house, the most expensive private residence in Florida when it was completed. And within 40 years, it was a hotel. And within another 10 years, it was nearly demolished. And the story of how that happened is the story of how America treats the things it builds when the people who built them are gone. Henry Flagler was born in 1830 in Hopewell, New York. His father was a Presbyterian minister. The family had no money. Henry left school at 14 and went to work for a grain merchant in Ohio. He was good at business in the way that some people are good at music. Intuitively, instinctively, without being able to fully explain why the decisions he made were the right ones. By the time he was 30, he had made and lost a modest fortune in the salt business. He had learned from the loss. He moved to Cleveland. He met a man named John D. Rockefeller. In 1870, Flagler and Rockefeller formed Standard Oil. You know what Standard Oil became. You know what the men who founded it became. By 1880, Henry Flagler was one of the wealthiest men in America. His first wife, Mary, died in 1881. He remarried in 1883. His second wife, Ida Alice, suffered a mental breakdown in 1891. She was committed to a sanitarium. She would remain institutionalized for the rest of her life. Flagler wanted to remarry. He could not remarry legally in New York. He was a man of significant political influence. He used it. In 1901, the Florida State Legislature passed a law making incurable insanity grounds for divorce. The law was specifically designed for Henry Flagler. It was known in the Florida press as the Flagler Divorce Law. He divorced Ida Alice in August 1901. He married Mary Lily Kennan in August 1901. He was 71 years old. She was 34. He built her Whitehall as a wedding present. Construction began before the wedding. It was completed the following year. The house that Henry Flagler built for Mary Lily Kennan was the most deliberate demonstration of wealth in Florida history. Every decision was made to impress. The marble entrance hall was designed so that arriving guests would understand immediately what kind of house they were in. The Louis XIV music room, the Italian Renaissance library, the Swiss billiard room, the French Baroque ballroom. Each room was a different historical period. Each period was executed with the kind of precision that required craftsmen to be imported from Europe, because the equivalent skill was not available in America. The paint on the walls of the master bedroom was mixed with gold dust. The handles on the doors were cast bronze. The bathtubs were carved from solid marble. The rugs were hand-knotted and had been made specifically for the dimensions of each room. Nothing was off the shelf. Everything was made. Henry Flagler was spending the money of Standard Oil on the project of demonstrating what Standard Oil could buy. He succeeded. Whitehall was the most talked about house in America when it opened in 1902. Social columns covered the parties. Photographs circulated nationally. The house was exactly what Flagler had intended it to be. A monument. Henry Flagler died in 1913. He was 83 years old. He had spent his final years completing the Florida East Coast Railway extension to Key West, a project that engineers said could not be done and that Flagler did anyway. The railroad reached Key West in 1912. Flagler rode the first train in personally. He died 14 months later. Mary Lilly inherited Whitehall. She was 46 years old. She was one of the wealthiest women in America. She did not stay at Whitehall. She returned to North Carolina. She remarried in 1917. Her new husband was Robert Worth Bingham. She died in 1917, 6 weeks after the wedding. The circumstances of her death were never fully explained. Her will left the bulk of her estate to Bingham. Her family contested the will. They believed Bingham had manipulated her. A settlement was reached. The settlement gave Bingham enough money to purchase the Louisville Courier-Journal newspaper, which became the foundation of a media empire. Mary Lilly's family received less than they had expected. Whitehall passed to Mary Lilly's niece, Louise Clisby Wise. Louise had no particular attachment to the house. She had no particular use for it. In 1925, she sold it to a group of developers. The developers built a 10-story hotel tower directly behind the original house. The Whitehall Hotel opened in 1926. The original Flagler Mansion became the hotel lobby. The marble entrance hall, where guests had once arrived for private parties, now processed hotel check-ins. The Louis XIV music room became a banquet facility. The Italian Renaissance Library became a bar. The hotel operated until 1959. By then it was outdated. Palm Beach had changed. The buildings that impressed visitors in 1926 did not impress visitors in 1959. New hotels had been built. The Whitehall Hotel was a relic. The owners decided to demolish it. The original Flagler Mansion and the hotel tower behind it would both come down. The land would be redeveloped. In Palm Beach in 1959, this was a straightforward business decision. Nobody considered it particularly significant. Henry Flagler had been dead for 46 years. The house he had built was a hotel lobby. Who would object? Jean Flagler Matthews objected. She was Henry Flagler's granddaughter. She was 60 years old. She had grown up with the knowledge of what Whitehall had been. She had watched it become a hotel. She was not going to watch it become a parking lot. Jean Flagler Matthews spent 3 years raising money. She formed the Henry Morrison Flagler Museum. She negotiated with the owners. She convinced enough people that this building was worth saving that the demolition was stopped. In 1960, the Whitehall Mansion was purchased by the museum. The hotel tower behind it was demolished. The original building was restored. It opened as the Flagler Museum in 1960. It is still there today. The story of Whitehall is not a story of loss. It is a story of near loss, of a building that came within months of being demolished because the people who owned it could not see what it was worth, and of a granddaughter who could. Jean Flagler Matthews is the reason the building exists today. Not Henry Flagler. Henry Flagler built it. Jean Flagler Matthews saved it. The difference between what happened to Whitehall and what happened to Florham is the difference between having a Jean Flagler Matthews and not having one. Florham had Ruth Toombley. Ruth Toombley tried. She ran out of options before she found a solution. Jean Flagler Matthews found a solution before the building ran out of time. The margin was narrow. The building is extraordinary. You can visit it today. You can stand in the marble entrance hall that is 73 feet long and 30 feet wide, with a ceiling 45 feet above your head. You can walk through the Louis XIV music room and the Italian Renaissance Library and the French Baroque ballroom. You can see what $2.5 million built in 1901. You can understand why a granddaughter spent 3 years of her life to make sure you could. The cruel question at the center of Whitehall's story is not about the house. It is about Mary Lily Kennan Flagler, the woman the house was built for, who died 6 weeks after her second marriage, whose will gave everything to a man her family believed had manipulated her, who never came back to Whitehall after her first husband died, who left the house to a niece who sold it to hotel developers. Henry Flagler built the most expensive private residence in Florida as a wedding present for a woman 37 years younger than himself. She outlived him by 4 years. She spent those 4 years somewhere else. She died under circumstances that were never fully explained. The house he built for her became a hotel lobby. The hotel was nearly demolished. A granddaughter he never met saved it. He built the Taj Mahal of North America. The woman he built it for never came home. The house is still there. She has been gone for over 100 years. Have you visited the Flagler Museum in Palm Beach? Tell me in the comments what you think about the woman the house was built for.